Hello, so in this tutorial I'll show you how to create services in our business logic layer. So the business logic layer can communicate with the DB layer directly or with the data access layer. Currently we have two data access layers, so we have the Hibernate and the iBatish data access layer. So I'll show you how to create services to connect to these three layers. We'll do this first manually and then we'll do this automatically very fast. So first thing to do is to log in our framework, choose the workspace, the correspondent project, and then let's go to our logic layer, to the correspondent folder of the project that we selected. So currently we are seeing that we don't have any services here. So to create the service, we do add service objects, we put the name of the service, school service. I like to have the service key after all the services, and now we can see in our navigator tree that he creates here a service object. So now we go to the this three dots icon and click in the menu add service methods, and it will open our editor, our low-code editor, and in here first thing to do is to write the to write the name of the method of the service that we want to create. Okay, so currently it already did, it created, so we can see here that the method inserted here already. And first thing that we want to do is, this is a business logic service. If it is, all the inputs that every time that I call this service, it will receive some input. So that inputs will come based on a default variable called data. Now, which type of inputs will this service get? So I don't know yet. So this is like an insert of what? So I want to create an insert of the school object. So one thing that we want to do, first thing is to do this directly in the database. So I have here a task called execute db DAO action, data access object action. We just drag and drop it here, it opens automatically here the properties, we choose the correspondent method which will be an insert, and then we click in this icon to be faster, we choose the school table, we do update, and automatically it shows me here the correspondent attributes of that table that I selected. By default I know that the school ID is an auto increment key, so I don't need it to insert it directly because the database it does this automatically. So I'll just close it here, and then from here I want to put the correspondent input that comes every time that I call this service. So I come here and I know that the input comes from a variable data, and the attributes inside of that input that will be passed will be called school name. This is just an example, you can put whatever other name you want to. So basically, and I will save. Before I save, I want to return then the status of this action. So this action will return a true or false, and I want to return this to the status variable. And I want then to return that variable status. So basically, I just come here, variable, and I put here status. Okay, so basically I already have my workflow done. So every time that I call this service, it will insert the input data into my database. Now, if I want to have some type of validation, I can do that too automatically. So I go here to my main settings, I can create my own annotations. So basically, what are annotations? It's like every time they call this service, this will check the inputs data that you are passing. So basically what we know that in this data we'll just pass one attribute, which will be the school name that we created, that we are using in this task here, as I showed you before. So as we can see in here, so we are using the school name. So basically, and this is which type it will be. Basically, every time that I call this service, the system will check if the school name it is a string, and I don't want it to be null, so it will check if it is not null, otherwise it will return an error. So I don't need to do this directly from the low code or from the code. The system has these validations that I can do this automatically. Okay, so this is done. I saved already. It should be saved by default. Okay, sometimes it takes a while, it's fine. So basically what I did here was to create a very simple service that every time that I call, I pass an input and it will execute that action in the database server. We can see, if you want, we can see the correspondent code, which is just this code, which is calling do tasks. So it's like two code statements. Very simple. If I want to do this automatically, I could just come here, do create objects automatically, choose the correspondent DB layer, which is this one, DB data in this case. I'll choose from the diagram, I'll select the school, which will be the school service. Do I want to overwrite it? I'll put no so you can see what happened. And I'll just click continue and automatically it creates me this new service, which is the school 26 service. So, and it creates me by default a bunch of methods. So if I go to the insert service, I can see some similarities. This workflow will be a little bit more complicated because it does some other validations and some other checks, but it does a bunch of things, including calling that task that we call to, which is the DAO task. So if we go down, we can see here that is calling this DAO task, which is basically what we did. So currently is calling the insert object, exactly the same thing that we did, but in here is calling this table name, which is a method which returns by default a correspondent table name. So all these methods are using this, which means that if I change the table inside of this method, automatically change all these methods too, here, very fast. And then it's calling here the attributes. It's being set in some other task that I have here before in the workflow. I can see the correspondent code too if I want to, but basically it does exactly the same thing. Additionally, I can see the correspondent annotations that he did it automatically. So in this case, I don't have the school name, I just have name, which is a varchar, which cannot be null, and it's basically is doing a bunch of other stuffs here. So the max length is 50. It is sanitizing my HTML because of hackings and other things. So basically it's a validation which I don't need to program. So basically the code, it did all of this automatically. Now let's go back to our procedure here, to our other method, and let's create a new method. And now this other method will call and will connect with some of the data access layers. So I'll just click here and I'll just write a new service called get items. This is just an example. So I create this. So basically I'm creating these new items, and what I want to do now, let's just wait a while so it can create automatically. It does already. And what I want to do now is I want to call another task which will call a IBATIS query. So I just drag and drop the correspondent task which calls call IBATIS query, and I just come here and I choose the correspondent query if exists. Currently it doesn't exist, it's fine. So let's just create some default queries very fast. So we have done this in the previous tutorials. So let's just create here queries automatically from diagram. Let's select all, one for this and another for the hibernate, the same thing from server. Okay, done. So all the correspondent queries, they are already created. So I go back again to the service method that I created, to the correspondent task, and now I do exactly the same action. I click here and automatically I should see already a bunch of queries, and this is the get items. So I want to get the get school items, which is this query here. So I just select it and automatically is done. So then I want to return the result to where. So basically I don't want any searching conditions, so I just delete this, and I want to return this to a variable which will be called items. I save this I drag and drop the return here, and so we can return that specific variable, which will be items, and I save this. So basically what we did here, in this case doesn't receive any input, it just returns all the items that I have in that specific table, and that's it. So this is through diabetes query. If I want to do this through the Hibernate, I just needed to find here the corresponding task, which will be call Hibernate object methods. I'll just drop it here, and could click in this icon here and go to the correspondent methods object. In this case is the school object, and then choose the correspondent method that will return all the objects, which is this one. Fine. So I just do update, and automatically fills me up here. It gives me the opportunity to fill some default data in the school ID or in the name, which is like some conditions. I don't want any conditions, so I just erase this, and I want to return this again to a variable. I could return or just put simple a variable, which will be the items, and I'll save it. So instead of this task here, I will have this task here. So this is just an example how to do both things. So this is the process how to do this manually. If I wanted to do this in an automatic way, so I'll just come here, create objects automatically, choose in this case if it is an IBITIS query, I choose IOR from the server. I go to my correspondent file that contains the bunch of queries, and I do next. Automatically it create me the school 14 service, which is this one. It can create a bunch of services. If I go to the get all service, which was basically the service, a similar service that we're creating before, I click here, and I should see basically the same task that we used when we're doing this manually, which is call query IBITIS, where is it? Which is in here, call IBITIS query, where I can see here that is calling the correspondent query. If I wanted to through the Hibernate, exactly the same thing. I just do create objects automatically. I choose the Hibernate data access layer from the diagram. In this case, that's what we are doing currently, and I choose next. Currently create me the school 37 service, which is this one here. So if I open the get all methods, I can see that it create me, it is calling the correspondent, it is calling the correspondent function of the Hibernate. It's not this one. Well, it's not this one too, so I just scroll down and it's this one here. Okay, so it's this one, call Hibernate object methods. Okay, so basically this task is doing something similar that we were doing before. So we are just calling the correspondent method find of this Hibernate object here, passing this data variable, which is set before. So basically this is ways of creating our own workflow. We can do it manually or we can do it automatically in a very fast way. And that's it. Thank you very much.